Basketball Reference has a respected formula to project Hall of Famers, and Derrick Rose has a 10.5% chance. Karl Anthony Towns has a better shot, which means D. Rose could be the first MVP not in the Hall of Fame. And that even includes other one-time MVPs like Bill Walton or Willis Reed. But compare their resumes. Bill Walton and Willis Reed were the best player on championship teams, finals MVP. Walton also won 3 college MVPs and 2 national titles. Reed was All-NBA 5 times. Can you believe after D. Rose won his MVP, not even a third-team All-NBA? It was the shortest peak ever. Is that worthy of the Hall of Fame? Well, you have to remember what the NBA was like during his MVP year. Rose was drafted 3 years earlier to his hometown Bulls. He came from the South Side, poverty, violence. Chicago jumped from number 9 to the number 1 spot to get him. There was a 1.7% chance of that happening. Felt like destiny. Derrick was a reminder to kids, like, you don't have to be defined by where you come from. But in Cleveland, LeBron just broke up with his hometown on national TV. Imagine if a girlfriend did that to you. Are we staying together? No, everyone, no, I'm going with him. Much more successful and better looking. So people were rooting for D. Rose and hating on LeBron James. The media wanted any reason to not give him his 5th straight MVP. But if you ask the stat nerds, D. Rose didn't deserve it. Had worse numbers than LeBron, including advanced stats. Plus, the Bulls were the number 1 defense. All Derrick had to do was be decent and his team got wins. So in the playoffs, LeBron guarded D. Rose. Miami easily won in 5 games. But Derrick won. It doesn't matter what they say. And he got there in year 3. That would be like Paolo Banchero winning the MVP this coming year. Or Chet Holmgren winning MVP, technically. So the next year, he could prove all his haters wrong. Bulls, 1 seed again, but in the first playoff game, he tore an ACL. And for how loved D. Rose is now, people forget how ugly it got. First, fans blamed the coach. Tibbs played him too many minutes. But then, they turned on Rose. A Bulls reporter even said, from a PR standpoint, I don't know if I've ever seen a situation as mishandled as Rose's ill-fated return season. It was a full year after the injury. Team was battling for the playoffs, but Derrick still wasn't playing. Why not? Why is he in a suit on the bench, healthy apparently, while we need him? The truth is, Derrick wasn't 100%, but instead of having his back, the Bulls leaked to the media that team doctors had cleared him. This wasn't their fault. So with the whole city hating on him, Derrick rushed back and got injured 10 games later. After that, never the same. So a lot of people call him the biggest what if of all time. How many more MVPs? Where would he rank in all-time point guards? But what about his whole team? I mean, 1 year later, they would replace Keith Bogans with young Jimmy Butler. How good would they have been together? Maybe Jimmy and D. Rose both have a ring, but all we've got is this 2-year peak. And Rose continued to play 11 more seasons. So let's look at other guys with similar career stats. Did they make the Hall of Fame? Well, Derrick finished with 17.4 points and 5.2 assists per game. There are actually 15 eligible players with career averages around that. They are on your screen. 8 of them are Hall of Famers, 7 are not. D. Rose right in the middle. So yeah, it's not out of the question. But Rose has something none of those guys did. Not even Scottie Pippen. You can't measure it. No one knows where it came from. For some reason, D. Rose is still one of the most loved players years after he was even relevant. ESPN did a study in 2018, 7 years after the ACL. Rose was the 36th most famous athlete in the world. More popular than Tom Brady, Venus Williams, and a bunch of soccer guys. In 2022, the Action Network did a study on most marketable, like popular or cultural impact. 1 LeBron, 2 Steph, 3 Derrick Rose. Number 3 in 2022. How is that possible? You also see it from other players.
I was like, bro, I played with a lot of great players. Derrick Rose during that time was probably the most talented player I ever played with.
Yeah.
I mean,
at 23 too. Think about that. Just starting.
At 23, man, yo, this dude was ridiculous.
And Rip Hamilton played with Michael Jordan. Now this was Wizards MJ, but still, every player talks like that. So why is he so popular with players and fans? Even though he had one huge moment after the ACL, that regular season 50-piece. You could say it was his talent or his personality, but I've got a theory that explains it all. And when you hear this theory, it makes perfect sense. Some people say it's just the Bulls. I mean, if you're the first major star for them after Michael Jordan, it means a lot. Others say it's his story. He came from nothing, youngest MVP, tragically injured. Then we saw his emotional reaction when the Bulls gave up and traded him.
You serious? It's funny how everything plays out.
And after all that, when he came to terms with his career, Derrick never acted like a victim, and he had every reason to feel sorry for himself, but he didn't. That is inspiring. But I've got a different theory on why he's so loved. My theory is D Rose is the rock star who died young. Kurt Cobain, Tupac, D Rose. They never got too old, which is uncool, and those guys never made a bad album because they didn't have time to fade off. They'll always be remembered at their peak, at their coolest. Now, D Rose didn't die, obviously, thank goodness, but his elite skill did. And normally, we build guys up just to tear them down. It's like, oh, he's so good, expectations through the roof. Then when they don't meet those expectations, they get slammed like Trae Young or something. I mean, imagine if Ben Simmons got injured right before his big decline. He'd be loved. So according to stats, D Rose is not a Hall of Famer. But basketball is different than baseball or football. For example, in baseball, there have been 57 MVPs not in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, steroids a big part of that, but 57 MVPs. For the NFL, it's 14 MVPs not in the Hall. But in basketball, it's 0 because the standards are lower. Who votes on this is 24 people on a committee. It's Hall of Famers, NBA execs, members of the media, and other experts, whatever that means. A finalist has to get 18 of 24 votes to make the Hall of Fame. And I think every player and media member will vote for D Rose because they love him. I'm not sure about the execs or the experts, but it only takes a few. So while I don't think he gets in on the first ballot, D Rose will absolutely be a Hall of Famer because you can't tell the story of the 2010s without D Rose's short prime. But one of the most famous basketball players now is actually female. It's Caitlin Clark. She is a Nike athlete, signed a huge deal, but for some reason never got a signature shoe. Probably more famous than Wemby right now in the US. And Nike's got an official reason why she doesn't have a shoe, but the actual truth is terrible.